and welcome back to my channel. My name is Mildly Gothic. If you're new here, what I like to do is a variety of artsy stuff, usually with a little bit of a dark twist, but today it's just artsy. First off, happy Easter. This is a stupidly fun hat my dad got me from Korea, and I thought it was fitting for the occasion, being Easter, so it's quite entertaining. But what we are doing today is my favorite spring Easter craft that I started with my mom, and that is blown out Easter eggs. We started doing these because, you know, Easter, you dye eggs, the vinegar and all that, but you do that with hard-boiled eggs usually, and I don't like hard-boiled eggs, so my mom kind of got sick and tired of, like, boiling a dozen eggs and then dyeing them and then me refusing to eat all of them. So we started doing this instead. It basically leaves you with an eggshell, and you can paint it and decorate it and keep it for basically forever. They're actually surprisingly sturdy. So anyways, I'm going to show you all the ones that not all of them, but a lot of the ones that I've done over the years with my mom, and then the ones that I have for the past couple of years, and then the ones I made for this year and how the process works. I've limited myself in recent years to doing 2 eggs. I do one to commemorate something big that happened in the last year or something that's, you know, just about to happen. So last year, even though graduation hadn't come by the time Easter had, I made an egg themed around graduation because I knew that was coming in that year. And then I just tried to do a fun one, a fun artsy one or a different one, just something kind of interesting. So it should be, for my family, it's probably going to be pretty obvious what my egg themed around the big thing that I did last year will be, but you'll find out soon enough. But without further ado, let me show you how to make some blown out Easter eggs. So when it comes to painting eggs, I typically do 2 every year unless they're for friends. I do one that commemorates something big that happened that year and one for something fun. So for my something fun, my first one that I have to show you guys is this Star Trek themed one. We did a really fun galaxy. There's glitter and stuff on it because stars, some two-toned. Tried to get the NCC 1701 on there. Little warp trails, and then of course to boldly go, and I always put my initials and I date my eggs. So this is my fun 2020 egg, and if that was the fun one, what do you think the big one that happened that year was? Ta-da! I made a COVID-19 egg. So signed this one, just covered it in the tiny little coronaviruses to the best of my ability, even though they just kind of look like, hi, are we gonna focus? Even though they just kind of look like tiny little weird splotches. But this was my egg of something big that happened that year, so these were my 2020 eggs. So this one's my favorite. This one was just because, of course, that's going to be the big thing that happened that year. So for 2021, this was my fun egg. So I did a sunset over the water, because why not? Back of the egg's kind of plain, you just have the colors wrap. Probably should have made the ocean a bit darker. Got some fun clouds, tried to get some highlights and stuff in there. That looks like I probably touched it with my finger and didn't realize, whoops. But got some different colored highlights, and then of course the sunset with all those different shines in the water. And then of course signed and dated on the bottom. That one was super fun. And this is 2021. I don't know that I actually did something for big that happened in 2021, because this is the only other egg I can find dated really with 2021. And it was some more abstract flowers. This was inspired by my mom. My mom does a lot of abstract kind of artwork, and I wanted to do something a little bit looser and more freeform with this. I think this one came out really pretty. Of course, big 2021, and this background color is just gorgeous. It's a little more purple than I think is showing up on camera, but it's really pretty. So from what I can find from 2021, again, for what I have with me, I don't think I did a big one that happened that year, because I'm not sure much did. It was just another year, one more year left of school, which brings us to 2022. So I graduated from college, so I made myself a little graduation cap. Technically, Easter comes before May, so it was more of an anticipation of graduating, but still, nonetheless, we've got this one. So I graduated with a computer engineering degree, and that's my university. So that's a fun egg. That's the big one that happened that year. And this is the fun one. I made a BB-8 egg. So really tried. I spent so long staring at reference pictures, trying to get, again, stuck my finger on the egg. Tried to get all of the tiny little details in all of the right places. And I thought for turning a round form into an oval, I did pretty good. I did try to find the roundest egg that I had that year to turn it into this one. So if I can, I'll get my mom to send me the pictures of some of the ones I've done over the years from back home. But until I get those, that's all the eggs that I've done in the past. So let's make some new ones.
Okay, I know there's a bunch going on screen right now, but these are all of the eggs that my mom and I have done over the years from back home. You may be able to see there's a Midsummer Night's Dream egg. That was a theater production I was in. There's like more than one Ravenclaw egg. There's an Artemis Fowl egg in there. There's theater themed. Pretty sure one of those is the Golden Snitch. There's one with an Notori Gate on it from the year we went to Japan. There's an Alice in Wonderland egg. There's a lot of abstract ones with fun colors. My mom does a lot that look like Fabergé eggs, and I think those are so pretty. But over the years, we've done kind of an insane amount of these, and to some extent it becomes a problem of where do you store them. But for right now, they live in these big bowls. But that's the collection of the ones my mom and I have done over the years. I think they're all really pretty and serve as a source of inspiration for ones to come.
Just a quick tip on storing these. If you store these eggs next to each other, they will stick together. My mom and I have discovered this over the years. So at least the way I've been storing them with a lot of moving and stuff for college is literally just a layer or two of tissue paper is more than enough to protect these guys and stop them from sticking to each other. So I just kind of layer some tissue paper in a plastic bag and nestle these guys in there very gently, really just trying to make sure they don't stick to each other, but also just kind of have a cavity where they can be nestled and be protected. You don't want to pack the bag like super tight, of course, because then that kind of defeats the purpose, again, of storing them, but you can just kind of nestle them away. I have not discovered any issues with them sticking to the plastic. I've been storing them this way for about 2-ish years. But I also do not store them in any kind of sunlight. They're pretty much in a closed container. So, there's no worry of, any damage from that. But I have about 2 of these bags, and this is how I like to store them. So when it comes time to actually blowing your eggs, there's a few things you're going to need. One, of course, your eggs. I only plan to do 2, but I have 3 here just because sometimes one may crack or break. So I always recommend doing 1 or 2 more, prepping 1 or 2 more than you think you'll need. And the prep is simply just giving them a good rinse and then, just kind of patting them dry. You don't really want to be pulling them straight out of the carton. Another is a receptacle for your egg to go into. This is a Tupperware. I promise it's clean. It just looks a mess. You're also going to want some wooden skewers. I have 3 here. That's also partially why if all 3 of those are successful, I only have 3 skewers. These are going to help us mount them, to be able to let them dry, and also to eventually paint them. Next is something to mount your eggs in or to. This is a piece of styrofoam from packaging that I got like forever ago that I've held on to literally for this purpose, because you can just stab the skewers in and they'll stand with no problem. You also want a lot of paper towels. Having a lot of paper towels on hand is going to be very useful for this process. And last but not least, something sharp and stabby and pointy. I can't find what I usually use, so what I have is a very small seam ripper that I don't really care about. So if it gets completely egged up and I can't wash it decently enough, especially because there's that hole in it, I don't really care if I throw it out. So that's the other most important thing. So the first process that you're going to have with blowing an egg out is you're going to want to make some holes. So when it comes to your egg selection criteria, there's a few things you want to think about. Some of it is personal preference. I like rounder eggs. I think you get more of a front for an actual image to go off of. And I don't know, I like the more round and bulbous ones. If you like them longer, tall, and skinny ones, go for it. But there's 2 different holes you're going to need to poke in the egg. One is going to be a very small hole at the top, and the second is going to be a very large hole in the bottom. The one we are going to tap first is the large hole. So, what you want to do very carefully, and you'd be surprised the amount of force that you need, but I promise you won't break it, is you just need to start stabbing away. Once you get a small hole, what you can do if you're careful is leverage the eggshell up and away.
I say up and away because if you do intend to use the egg itself afterwards, you'd probably want to try to remove as many egg shell fragments as possible. I'm sorry, I'm attempting to multitask and it's not going very well. So the size of this hole is completely up to you, but the bigger it is, of course, the larger a hole you will have in the bottom of your egg, but the smaller it is, the harder the next step becomes. So this is what I'm gonna go with. If this is your first time doing this, this may be too small. So what you're going to want to do, typically, I have a metal skewer that I use for this instead, but I couldn't find it, so we're winging it with a sewing needle. So what that means is I'm going to sacrifice one of my sticks as my scramble stick. So you're going to stick it in here, and you're going to scramble the inside of the egg. So spin it around, churn it, literally whatever you need to do to scramble the inside of the egg. You want to try to scramble it nice and real good. And this may fragment the edges of your hole a little bit more. That's okay. But getting this nice and scrambled is very important. And if egg washes down, you can just kind of wipe that off as you go. This is why having paper towels on hand is very important. So you want to spend some time doing that. And then you're going to have a consistent place to put your skewer so you're not getting egg everywhere. So now we're going to turn it over our bowl. And this is where you want to try to get it as vertical as you can. But the hole you want to poke here is very small. You do not need that hole to be very big at all. So here comes the fun and or gross part.
Am I going to regret filming this and putting it on the internet? Who knows? But the next step is you are literally going to blow the insides out of the egg. And yes, this is the hardest point of this process.
This audio is here to protect you from the sounds of egg guts being blown out. You probably have to blow them out with more force than you anticipate. Just be careful holding it. I have never cracked the egg during this point in the process, but theoretically it is possible. If doing a lot of eggs, don't be afraid to take breaks. Unfortunately, it is more exhausting than it seems.
But when you get pretty good at it, it's not bad. This is also why scrambling your egg in the previous step is really important, because it makes it super easy. It breaks up all those membranes, and this is really gross, and I apologize, but it comes out really easily. Yes, probably your spit may end up in this. This is why if you choose to use these eggs, use them for an omelet for yourself, not brownies for your coworkers. You know, just saying, like, have some kind of balance in there. But the next step, what you're gonna do is you're going to take a skewer and, well, actually, so the very next step is wash off the bottom of your egg. If you're doing a lot of these, there's basically two ways you could proceed with this. You are either going to mount it for later, or you're going to wash it immediately. If you're doing a lot of these, my advice is probably just get it mounted on a skewer, and you can come right back to it. If you're not doing that many of them, I'm not doing that many of them, I might rinse them out while you're here and while you have the time. But you're going to repeat that process for all of your eggs, and I'll see you when I'm done.
To start, painting an egg really isn't different than any other canvas, except for the fact that you have to be hyper aware of where you are putting your fingers. I typically hold mine by the stick and then with a finger on top, and if you can, it's best to make sure that what skewer or whatever you're using to mount the egg actually goes all the way through, as it gives you a very good pivot point and a lot more control over the egg. Otherwise, it's just going to kind of spin around you. I'm also using a finger on the back side to kind of brace it, and this is why you want to be very careful as you're spinning it and working on different details to make sure that you aren't accidentally putting your finger in your freshly painted section. This first egg that I'm doing is my egg to mark something big that happened in the past year or something that is cut to come in this coming year, and that is Domino. I adopted him on September 1st of last year. Well, rather, I brought him home. I didn't officially adopt him until about 3 weeks later, but I got most of the detail on that egg done, and then I moved on to the other one. I want to do a gradient on this one, and if you were trying to base the entire egg in a background color, I recommend starting from the bottom and then going to the top, because you can brush up from the bottom and hold it secure on the top, and then when you brush from the top, you're just pushing it further down on the skewer. Otherwise, if you start with the top and then go to the bottom, you're going to end up sticking your finger in wet paint. So that's really the hardest part about this, is managing that back and forth. Here I'm going in and adding some more details to Domino. Very much my first portrait of this dog. I'm quite pleased with how it came out. The second coat of the color goes the same way, start from the bottom and then kind of work your way up, build up the color. This is why I recommend, honestly, doing more than one egg at a time, because you can switch between them as one layer dries, you can go add details to the other one, and it makes it for a much more entertaining and engaging process rather than just sitting and watching paint dry. You can constantly be switching and picking something up or continuously working on something. So if you've never done a pet portrait before, like I've done one of my parents' dog, Leo. They can be really hard, especially if the dog is black. You want to find the right grays to actually be the highlights instead of the white. And I think it came out super, super cute. I mean, look at him. He's adorable. I always like to date my eggs if it's a specific event. I always actually include the date or year that happened. Otherwise, I just date it with the current year, and I always sign my initials at the bottom. So to go on to this other egg, the last coat that I'm applying is this really nice and shiny purple to kind of like blend it all together and give the background an extra sheen. I wanted it to be kind of space inspired, not really, just something nice and real pretty. And the theme for this egg was space, or more specifically, Huntsville, Alabama. If you are unaware, Huntsville is actually a huge location as far as space and research. Specifically, they have the Space and Rocket Center, which has Pathfinder, which is a space shuttle sitting on a full stack, and then they also have a giant standing Saturn V. It's one of my favorite things about the city, and so I was paying tribute to it with this egg and my painting here. This one took me a lot longer than Domino because I'm very particular about my details in my spacecraft, and I wanted to make sure I could get it as accurate as I could. I do think the space shuttle came out a little bit better than the Saturn V, but less space to add detail, so, you know, that's just kind of what happens. I originally was just going to have them standing as they appear in real life, so Pathfinder just sitting on a stationary stack and the Saturn V just standing in the air, but I thought it would be a lot more interesting to have the smoke and the fire and make them really look like they were taking off. Again, I think the shuttle looks a lot better on this aspect, but it also has more details for the engines, the little blue lines around the engines for the shuttle itself versus the solid rocket boosters. The Saturn V, it's hard to see those individual engines, so it gets a little muddy. The smoke was really interesting as far as trying to blend the colors to get it to be exactly what I wanted. I think I got there in the end, and overall I'm really happy with it, and I think it's a really cool egg. Last thing I did was added an HSV as if it is a tourist, postcard for Huntsville itself, the year, and then of course my initials.
So just to show off what we have, here is my Domino egg. This is the first portrait I have tried to paint of this dog, and I think it actually came out really cute. I know it's not the most accurate thing in the world, but it's so adorable. I included the date that I brought him home. That's not his official adoption date because I fostered him for about 3 weeks, but I put the date that I brought him home. He's covered in a bunch of little tiny spots, so we got all sorts of spots. And then, of course, a big old domino instead of his name, because I think it's fitting. So this is my egg of the big thing that happened in this past year or is yet to come. And I'm super in love with it because, that is just the cutest thing in the world. The next egg I did, I felt like going with a space theme, so I did the space shuttle on one side. We've got the Saturn V on the other. That's a little rough. We're going to pretend he looks better. HSV stands for Huntsville. If you don't know, Huntsville played a huge role in a lot of the space program and all of that. There's Space Camp, which has the Pathfinder space shuttle, then also a massive standing Saturn V, which is my favorite thing about it. Tried to do the smoke and stuff like it was taking off. That side came out better. I'm a little impatient, is I think what we got to over here. And I put this year because this is just an egg that looks pretty. So the last thing that's left to do is to cover them in Mod Podge, and this is the point where if you wanted to add glitter or something else you could, but you just paint a clear coat of Mod Podge. You can use glossy or matte, it depends on the look you want for the egg, but that seals it all up. So I'll do that and get back to you for the end.
And with all of that, thank you so much for watching this video. If you've made it to this point, you might as well hit the like button and subscribe. You stuck around for this long, why not? Thank you for visiting my little weird artsy corner of the internet. Hope you stop by again sometime. We'd love to have you. I've got a lot of things in the works and I'm super excited. So hope you stick around. I'm repeating myself, but at this point, thank you so much for watching and I will see you in the next one.